Hello, everybody. Welcome on back to Fantasy Football Futures. I'm Tyler, and this is Tim.
What's up?
And today's episode, we will go over some of the starts and fades for Week 10 fantasy football season. Hopefully, there's some pretty solid matchups here. I feel like some good teams for wide receiver matchups, running back matchups, pretty solid. I feel like a lot of them aren't too bad, so I'll be interested to see if this is a higher scoring week than what we've had the last 2 weeks. But I don't know. We'll see. Let's go ahead and jump into some of the news that's happened so far today. It is Thursday.
The 11th, Veterans Day.
November 11th, Veterans Day.
Thank you for your service.
Yes, so we will be going over that. Some breaking news that happened today was Odell Beckham has joined the Los Angeles Rams. What do you think of that?
What do you think? I'm not looking much into it. Maybe it hurts Robert Woods a little bit, but if anything, I think Odell's a little bit overhyped, and maybe defenses will worry about him a little too much, and that just opens it up for Cooper Kupp, maybe even Robert Woods. So
yeah,
some people might think it's a negative. I'm almost looking at it as a positive, and you keep it on different sides of the field. Everyone's, I don't really know. I'm not really thinking much about it. I think it'll be perfectly fine.
Yeah, that's what it'll be interesting to see. The only thing you can worry about is if it takes away from Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, but I don't think it will be too much of a hassle for Cooper Kupp. I'll be interested to see what this team's going to look like knowing what they have, but that's something to keep an eye out for. And then another big news that came out was Cam Newton signed back with the Panthers today. And they did say that P.J. Walker is going to be playing and starting, so I'm still curious to see what P.J. Walker is going to do for this offense. But to me, do you think they pick up Cam to play him, or do you think it's just more to be around the room to help P.J. Walker through transitioning into playing as a starter, or is it just kind of a backup security plan in case P.J. Walker can't handle it?
I think it's that. I think he's going to be the backup, and if P.J. Walker can't handle it, that's when they bring Cam Newton in. I think Cam Newton he went through 10 weeks of no one really wanting him, so maybe his mindset has changed a little bit. I think he's going to try to prove people wrong and get in there, and maybe if he can play in a game or two, show that he's changed. But I can see that this is a backup role for sure until P.J. Walker can't play or gets injured.
Okay, that's what I'll be interested to see. I like P.J. Walker. What he showed in the AAF was good. I think he'll kind of help out what the Panthers are looking to do, which is grow a lot more than what they've shown over the last couple weeks in that offense. So I don't know. He brings a running threat that's different than what Sam Darnold was, and anything can help right now with how bad Sam Darnold was playing this year. So that's something to keep an eye out for. And really, that's pretty much it for right now. You know, we got some players who popped up late this week on injury reports, like Najee, but his foot, but he still put in a limited practice today. And really, just something to keep an eye out for is the rest of them doing that. I know the big thing from this week is just Odell. I don't see pretty much anything else overshadowing that. I know Russ is coming back this week.
The Rams were a shocker, though. They were never like a part of the conversation.
No, they were saying Seahawks, Packers,
Saints.
I think
Patriots.
Chiefs, Patriots were on that list at one point. No one. I know we jokingly said the Rams on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Like outside of this, but I didn't think he would actually go there.
No.
To me, Rams is just. It's all in. They're going.
Odell's got to know he's not the top wide receiver there. Like he has Cooper Kupp, the number one wide receiver in the league right now on that team.
I don't know why he's going to Los Angeles. To me, it
has probably the best chance to win a Super Bowl. Best team that reached out that has a chance.
See, if I'm him, I'm looking at maybe going to Green Bay.
That's what I was thinking too. If I was him,
because you got Devontae on one side.
The thing is, I saw they can only offer him the league minimum because they haven't paid Devontae Adams yet. So they could only offer the least amount, and so.
Well, Odell's he needs to realize I feel like his hype is just too much over the catches he's had. I know he did have like 2 years of 1,300 plus yards in a row, 3 years of that, and he had like 10 to 12 touchdowns in those years. But outside that, we haven't really seen much from him. But I'll be interested to see what this does to the Rams, and I don't know. I would personally love to see it hurt Cooper Kupp's value. because I can't stand Cooper Kupp and what's happened here. But
I don't think it is.
I don't think it will either. I think if anything, it hurts Robert Woods more than anybody.
Yep.
So
probably if you have Van Jefferson in those deeper leagues, Van Jefferson's probably going to be hurt.
Gone. Yeah. So it's going to be tough to see, but super weird signing. But I'm curious to see how it's going to pan out. So that's pretty much all the news right now. Just keep an eye out for the injury report. I know a lot of people popped up lately on it, so that's really the biggest thing. But other than that, let's go ahead and jump into the starts for Week 10 here. We just chose 5 people that we thought are must-starts. I feel like this week was kind of... The bye weeks, it just throws everything off in general because you never know what there is. But I think the 5 guys we have, they're kind of 50-50 guys that you could start and sit, depending how deep your team is and how deep the league is. But I think number 1 guy for this week for me would be Jerry Judy versus the Eagles. I think we saw last week they are incorporating him back into the offense. I know we didn't put up huge numbers last year, but he was targeted a lot. And I just think Jerry Judy's going to come back, have a huge week this week. Teddy Bridgewater and him they had a great connection to start the season, and I think you're going to see grow into this next week, I think it's his 3rd week back from injury. Yep. So I think this is where he picks up and kind of gets in that stride. He probably puts up 70 yards with a touchdown this week.
Yeah, I was going to be interested to see how he came back out. He had 72% snap count the first game, so it's kind of he looks like to be 100%. Like they didn't try to force him back. He only had 4 targets, 4 catches, just trying to get back in the offense. Was not on the field as much against Dallas, probably because they got up ahead so fast. They didn't need to play him. But he also had those 8 targets for 11 yards per catch, so it's looking good. I always thought Jerry Judy, when he's healthy, is the number 1. Cortland Sutton's a very good wide receiver, but I think Jerry Judy is the number 1 wide receiver on that team. The best deep threat they have, and just the most talented wide receiver.
That's why he's the best route runner on their team. I know Tim Patrick had the huge week last week for the Broncos. Is he practicing this week and healthy? Okay, so
I believe he is.
That's just something to keep an eye out for with him. But I just think Jerry Judy this week's having a huge week. Cortland Sutton's kind of been the outside guy with no fan. He was on COVID last week, but I think he's coming back. So that's the only thing that can kind of degrade Jerry Judy is no fan playing. But I think with the connection coming back and it being his 3rd week right before bye, they're going to have a huge week together this week. So must start 1, Jerry Judy versus the Eagles. My second must start here is a guy who's had 2 down weeks in a row, kind of dealing with a knee injury, and his counterpart and Keenan Allen has kind of taken over. But I think this is a week he puts up big numbers against the Minnesota Vikings, and that's Mike Williams with the Chargers. Minnesota's defense is not great, really not good at all. We saw Marquise Brown put up big numbers. Even Rashad Bateman had at least 6 catches for 70 yards last week. So to me, I think you're going to look at the Chargers continuing to get in the groove from what they were before their bye week, and I think Mike Williams and I would think Keenan Allen, they both have huge games. And Mike Williams can be a guy you're like, well, he can either put up 30, he's a boomer bust guy, 30 or 3. You don't really know. But I'm liking the chances of Mike Williams this week against Minnesota. I'm going to definitely insert him as a flex play, if not like a wide receiver 2 spot. So.
Yeah, the Chargers looked a lot better last week. Herbert looked a lot better. Mike Williams has been dealing with that injury, but this matchup against the Vikings, they're the number 10 defense in fantasy, but last week they gave up 500 yards to the Ravens, and they gave up over 400 the week before, coming off a bye to the Cowboys. Any good offense that they play, they can't stop. It's going to be a shootout. When we get into the gambling, going to love this over in this game because I think Chargers defense is a little not as good as people think. So I think this is going to be a shootout, and I believe the Chargers they're going to score a lot of points this game. And I think Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Eckler, they're all going to have good games, and it's going to be a bounce back week for Mike Williams.
That's why I was thinking. Mike Williams puts up huge numbers. Like we said, we've seen Vikings in games just give up points. That's what they do. They just give up points each week, and that's it. So to me, I think he's one to watch, and like you said, all Chargers are one to watch. So he's an easy must-start for Week 2. Looking here at not Week 2, at spot number 2 on our must-starts place is, and then our must-start number 3 for this week is going to be Mike Evans with the Buccaneers versus the Washington football team. Whoa, almost said that.
Whoa.
Sorry. But yeah, I think Mike Evans, he had two catches, I think, against the Saints before their bye week last week. And so usually when he does something like that, he's due for a big game. What saved him against the Saints was he had like a 30-yard touchdown reception. Yep. So I think Mike Evans comes out and the Bucs come out firing. I expect Mike Evans to put up one of those big games where he has at least 2 touchdowns this week.
Yeah, with Godwin being injured and Brown being injured.
Yeah.
So there's pretty much no one there. Gronk's back, but he's pretty much
like
almost he's like situation. So it's going to be the Mike Evans show, I think, this week. I predict 2 touchdowns this week pretty easily, especially against the Washington football team's defense. Not good at all.
No, very hyped at the beginning.
He's a must start. I think he's someone you go for in daily fantasy also to kind of build your lineup around, because I believe he'll get in the end zone at least once, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be 2 times at least.
Yeah, that's why I think it's just what Mike Evans does when he has these slow games to start. The next week he puts up huge numbers. So I think expect that out of Mike Evans this week with Antonio Brown just coming back. I know he didn't have his walking boot yesterday, but how much will he actually play if he does play? And then Godwin kind of being dinged up as well, and Gronk not being fully healthy. So I look at him to put up huge numbers. I think 2 touchdowns is very easy for Mike Evans, especially against the Washington defense that it's just not performing like we thought. So that's our number 3. The number 4 here that we have here is Josh Jacobs against Kansas City defense that is terrible against the run and just a bad defense in general. And I think Josh Jacobs last year put up huge numbers every time they played the Chiefs. I think last year he had 3 touchdowns against the Chiefs in one game and then like 2 in the other one. So I expect them to rely heavily on Josh Jacobs in running the football against this bad Chiefs defense.
Yeah, I see the same thing. Yeah, he had the week 5 last year. He had 2 touchdowns, and in week 11 he had 1 touchdown. But he was always getting the end zone. I believe with Kenyon Drake, he's been kind of playing a little bit more since John Gruden left.
Yeah.
But I think this is just going to be a run-first offense. The Raiders kind of had a down week last week against the Giants, kind of had some distraction. Then you get back to what they're doing, and they're going to run the ball, I believe. I believe between that and kind of with Waller in there. So I expect Josh Jacobs to get in the end zone at least once. Could it be even 2 times if they get down in the red zone?
And that's why I think given a full week for Carr to get in sync with other receivers, because Henry Ruggs was obviously probably their number 1. You got Hunter Renfrow, that was really all he was throwing to, and Waller. You got to look at the growth of where's Bryan Edwards going to be. How much more involved is Hunter Renfrow going to be? And I know Hunter Renfrow has been dinged up this week during practice as well. So something to keep an eye out for, definitely. But I think, Mike said, they're going to want to come out, run the football, and make the Chiefs stop them on the ground.
Yep. And
I think they're fully capable of Josh Jacobs leading the way there. So,
and to be honest with you, I think this is going to be upset by the Raiders. The Chiefs have not done anything to think that this is going to be a blowout where the Raiders have to throw the ball a lot. This is going to be either it's going to be a very close game at the end, and the Raiders are going to try to get the last score, or the Raiders are going to be up and they're trying to get the clock down or run the ball. So I can see both those things.
And I'm split on this one just because I don't know what we're looking at with the Chiefs. I feel like each week you just expect the old Chiefs to come back, and we just don't know when or when or why that might happen. But I just think every week it's going to happen. When they play the Raiders, I always feel like the Raiders are in it, but they let something happen at the end. The Chiefs come back and win. So I'm not really sure about that game, but I'll be interested to see what happens there. I think anybody on this, I think Waller probably puts up another big game. But yeah, the Chiefs' offenses look bad.
Yeah, it is. It is in Las Vegas too, Sunday night.
It's tough. So that's definitely one to keep an eye out for. And he's our number 4 must start. Our number 5 must start here is Kirk Cousins against the Chargers. We talked about how the Chargers defense has not been very good against anything. They give up points. I think this is a game, like you talked about already, the overs where you want to look at, especially with the Vikings defense and this Chargers defense. I think this is when you can rely heavily on Dalvin Cook and then have a big game from Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. I think Kirk Cousins comes out and performs well What did he do last week?
So last week he threw 2 touchdowns, but only for 187 yards. So before the bye, he was really looking good. The last 2 games against Dallas had a really bad week.
Yeah.
Always does bad at prime time. And then last week against Baltimore, 2 touchdowns, 17 for 28, 187 yards. So I think Kirk Cousins, they're going to have to go back to what they were doing before the bye. So I think Kirk Cousins has a bounce back week, and he's gonna look good. That Chargers defense people thought was going to be good against the pass, and it started out being number 1, but they've been letting a lot of points score over and through the air. So I believe Kirk Cousins with Jefferson, Thielen, and Dalvin Cook back there, he should have a bounce back week.
This could be a game like what we saw earlier with the Browns and the Chargers, were back and forth, just shootout. Neither team could stop each other. So that's what I'm kind of hoping. I think will happen. I think Kirk Cousins is a guy. If you have him on your bench and you're looking at playing somebody, you slide him in there. So that's our 5th start. That rounds out our must starts for this week. Outside of these guys, I mean, Mike Evans isn't really a 50-50 guy right now, but the rest of them kind of can be. And I think with the buys and who's available to play this week, these are 5 people you should definitely insert in your lineup if you need to. Then let's go ahead and slide into some of the fades for the week. This one is kind of, I don't know, tough selections here as well. I feel like you're looking at matchup-wise, like Jets are playing the Buffalo Bills. It's tough matchup all around.
Sit the Jets players, and we'll talk about that later.
Number 1 fade here I have is Cortland Sutton versus the Eagles. And I put this here because I think Noah Fant coming back, Jerry Judy being his 3rd game back off injury. We saw how much Tim Patrick was used last week, and this run game was so dominant for them last week. I'm curious to see what they're going to look like this week, but I think Cortland Sutton has had a very disappointing year, and I think you're going to see it again this week. He's not going to be utilized like we thought he would.
Yeah, he kind of started off a little hot once Jerry Judy got hurt, but then starting week 7, he's had 5 targets, then 4 targets, then 2 targets, scoring his max at 11 points. It's just with Noah Fant in there, with everyone else healthy on that Broncos offense, he's just not that number 1 guy there, especially with Jerry Judy back, who is the best wide receiver they got. Then Noah Fant's really getting, especially in the red zone, Noah Fant's coming a big-time player there. And so, I like this must sit. Not saying you have to sit him because with your matchups and everything, but I think there's better matchups on the waiver wire or maybe on your bench over Cortland Sutton.
I think we saw a little bit last week what the Broncos want to do now. It's going to be run first, stop our 2-headed monster with Javonte and Melvin Gordon, and see what happens there and build off of that. So I think they're run first and then kind of build off that. And I think deep balls, we saw a lot more of that last week with Bridgewater. So that's something to keep an eye out for, and that's usually towards Patrick, Judy, and then Hinton, I think his name was.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's not the last name, but those 3 guys, and Cortland Sutton's kind of an odd man out. So something to keep an eye out for there, and I think that's why he's going to be a big fade this week. I would almost say probably score under 10 points this week. So that's the number 1 fade. Number 2 fade here I put was Antonio Brown versus Washington football team. I think coming off the injury, if he's still in a walking boot up until Wednesday, it's a guy that if he does play, he's not fully going to be ready. And it's just a tough play for me. If he's fully healthy, then we'll look stupid because I'm sure he'll have a big game. But I just feel like coming off of injury where he was still in a walking boot this week, if he plays, it's kind of someone you're going to fade just in case.
They actually updated about an hour ago. He looks to be a long shot to return and play this week. So he might be an automatic must sit because he might be not playing.
Yeah, so that's what he was definitely an option there. And if he does come back, I wouldn't play him, but that's just our next one.
Yep.
The next guy I have here is Corey Davis versus the Bills.
He's coming off an
injury.
He's good to go, though. He looks like he's full throttle.
I just think the Bills coming off what they did last week to the Jets, or not the Jets, to the Jaguars, they're going to try to come out firing and embarrass the Jets, show them that they don't belong on the same field as them. And is Mike White back or is it Josh Jackson?
Mike White.
Josh Johnson.
Mike White. They said he's going to be starting for the rest of the year.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Whoa, Mike White. So yeah, to me, this game I just feel like the Bills are going to come up and try to. This is a game where they just physically dominate the whole game and don't look back for the Bills after the down week they had last week. I just think Corey Davis, and then we can also throw Michael Carter in here, who was another must-sit for us this week. Michael Carter, I think, has developed great as a rookie, but you got to worry about how good the Bills' run defense has been. I know he'll get work out of the backfield, but I feel like this is just a bad matchup this week.
They should just take a week off of him. I would keep playing him, but I think this is the 1 week that you probably should sit him unless you have to play him.
Yeah. And it's solely because I think if they destroyed the Jags last week, I think you play these guys because they can't get up for two of these. Like, it's back-to-back bad.
Yeah, the Bills are coming back. They're a good team, and they got embarrassed last week, so they're gonna not hold anything back. Yeah.
Or is it in New York?
It's at in New York. Sorry.
So yeah, I just feel like they're gonna have to come in and even last week they won 9-6, but there really wasn't any offense on both parts. So to me, that worries about the Jets. I do, like you said, Michael Carter is going to be, I think, a play that you have the rest of the year. He's looked good. He's grown clearly that number one back. Corey Davis, I think, you might see a growth in his production with Mike White if what we've seen the last couple of weeks is going to continue. But Corey Davis also has to worry now about Elijah Moore's.
Yep. Elijah Moore had a good week last week. Looks like he's taken another step. Finally got into the end zone, so hopefully that keeps happening for him.
Yeah, so that's something to keep an eye out for. And I think coming off injury, they might kind of work him in slowly, get him involved slowly. So those are our 3 and 4 must-hits as well. And then our last fade for this week, I feel like it's a weekly thing right now. Antonio Gibson against the Bucs defense. He has seen a lot go to McKissick. Still battling injuries. Just, to me, has not looked great. And against a really good front for the Bucs, I don't see him having a solid week this week.
No, that's... Hopefully he kind of got a little bit healthy over the bye, but anytime their football team's been passing, McKissick's on the field.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if he was on the field all the time, I would like Antonio Gibson because they do like to throw. But anytime they're wanting to throw, it's McKissick on the field.
Yeah.
So this is why I'm staying away from Antonio Gibson until he can turn that around. But McKissick's been on the field more than he has 3 weeks before the bye, so I'm not going to play him until I see otherwise.
That's what I agree. Gibson, to me, I just feel like has been one of the ultimate disappointing guys for this year. And I just don't see how he's going to continue with McKissick taking all of that passing game.
Mm-hmm.
From where they said they wanted him to be a McCaffrey-type guy to now he's just strictly 2-down back.
Yep.
It's just an alarming thing to see. And I think when you play a team like the Bucs, you need a quicker guy out of the backfield like we saw Gaskin do against the Bucs, put up huge numbers receiving the football. I think that's something you'll see with McKissick this week taking over there.
Yep.
So those are our must starts and fades for the week. Are there any other guys you just want to throw out there to mention that maybe you think like sleeper guy or?
I want to say sleeper guy, but it's going to be interesting to see. Daryl Henderson, the past 2 weeks, has only been on the field for 60% of the snaps. So Sony Michel, I think we talked on Tuesday, is getting more snaps. So against San Francisco, who's kind of given up a little bit, they're not very good against the run.
Yeah.
Going to be looking at that to see if Daryl Henderson's maybe splitting almost 50-50 with Michel. And then if that starts to happen, Michel might be a good starter, a sleeper to play.
That's what there. And I think another one is someone we talked about too is Ayuk.
Yep.
His numbers are continuing to go up. I know he's not going to get back to what Ayuk was doing last year, but maybe the use of having two guys like Debo's more of a north and south and going to get through, and Ayuk's more of an east to west kind of guy and shiftier. So maybe he's building offenses into utilizing both those guys. And I think Ayuk might be able to get the ball in his hands quicker and just make plays. So to me, he's one to watch, but that's really from this week outside everybody we talked about. That's it for me. So there's our starts and our fades this week. Let's go into our gambling segment now with our college football picks, which to me, this college football week there's some really good games, but the craziest stat that I saw was Alabama's minus 51 favorites over against New Mexico State.
I'm pretty sure Nick Saban, when he's favored by 50 points or more, he has not covered a spread yet.
No, 50 points is absurd.
Yep. So, actually, you know what? I did not look at your picks at all. We have the exact same picks.
Yeah, so
It's crazy.
to me, I'm not touching the game. I just want to throw out there how insane that is. Nick Saban against New Mexico State, Alabama. I don't think there should ever be a team favored 51 points. But I guess we saw it last week with Georgia favored 40.5, and they didn't cover because Mizzou was able to lose by 39. So it's a real shame. But yeah, so let's go. I'll start with my first pick here, which is Ohio State minus 21 against Purdue, and it's at Ohio State in Columbus. I think this game is solely going off of what we saw last week. Michigan State played a game against. They played well against Michigan. I don't think they should have won that game. I think Michigan is a team that I don't like Michigan, but they're definitely a team that they're better than what they finished the game with against Michigan State. But I think Purdue beating Michigan State and taking out 2 top 10 teams, and then Ohio State playing Nebraska and only winning by 7 last week was not great. So I think I think they won by 9. You're looking at Ohio State here minus 21. I think this is a big time spread, especially Ohio State being at home. Purdue coming off a huge win at home last week. I like Ohio State minus 21.
Yep, so I'm thinking the same thing. This is a very good letdown game for Purdue. So they had that big game. And once you have a big game, the next game you usually don't do as good. And Ohio State kind of looked pretty bad last week against Nebraska. They didn't look bad, but they just didn't have that game where they
didn't blow them out. And
so I think this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, Nebraska is just they played at Nebraska. Nebraska at home plays well. Scott Frost is kind of turning the program around, and they've played teams tough. And I just think Ohio State was just kind of go through the motions. They did end up winning, but I think this is a game they blow out Purdue and make it look ridiculous. So that's my first one. My second one this week is Michigan at Penn State. I kind of already touched on it. I think they're better than Michigan State, who they lost to, and I think against Penn State, they're going to be able to run the ball all over them, which we've seen over the last against Penn State, Illinois. You looked at Ohio State. Some of their other games, I forget who else they've lost to. They just can't really stop the run. I think they struggle a lot against run-heavy teams. I think this is where Michigan comes out. They run all over them, and it's not very close. I like Michigan money line or minus 1.5 this week.
Yep. So on DraftKings, it's actually -1, but I'm actually going with that. What's going to help this? It's a noon game, so it's not going to be a hype. It's not going to be big. It's not going to be your night game. So I really like Michigan -1 here. I think they saw their number 6, and so they're like, if we can win out, we can make this playoffs. So I think that's what they're going to do. They're going to win. And I think they're going to cover pretty easily. Should be by a touchdown.
That's what I think. This game's not that close. I think Michigan routes them. They look good. I think it will come down to Michigan Ohio State, that last game of the year, where I think Ohio State will win again. But to me, I think Michigan right now they know they're controlling their own destiny. They'd have to win out because Michigan State still has to play Ohio State too. So. Something to keep an eye out further. So we both have Ohio State, Michigan. And then here I think Wake Forest bounces back after a loss against North Carolina last week. In Chapel Hill, they went down there, they lost. I had them last week, and they were scoring it. They just couldn't stop them last week. And I just don't think NC State's very good.
And that's the thing. Wake Forest was up, and then this North Carolina at the end.
Switched. So to me, I think Wake Forest covers this. I know I got them at -2 this morning.
It's at -1 right now.
See, so it's a pick'em game. I think you just ride Wake Forest here. It's at Wake Forest too, and NC State, they had a win against Clemson, who has not been very good. But I like Wake Forest to come back, bounce back after what happened last week, and kind of try to take back over that top spot in the ACC.
Yep, I 100% agree. That's my last pick too.
Yeah, so. College football, that's really all I have. Spreads are huge. Cincinnati was almost... So the last one, would you take Oklahoma or Baylor this week?
I would take...
Oklahoma's -5, and it's at Baylor.
Honestly, I would take Baylor. I think Baylor, they had a lost last week. It was kind of they lost last week, didn't they? I'm pretty sure they did.
I think so.
But I just think
they did because if Oklahoma beats them now, it doesn't look as great as what it was.
Yep. So I think they're gonna be pissed. They're coming in this week. Oklahoma hasn't beat anybody. Like they came back on that Texas game. Texas sucks.
Yeah.
So this is going to be their first. They're going into Baylor. I think Baylor it's going to be a very close game where it's like a field goal, or Baylor with the upset.
That's what to me. It's a tough game. Oklahoma, I think they're 8th in the college football polls, which is crazy and undefeated. But like you said, they almost lost to Kansas. They shouldn't have won a lot of games. They're not great. Caleb Williams is a much better stepping stone than Spencer Rattler, who's a huge douche. But yeah, so to me, I think this game, if Oklahoma goes in and wins and they win big, it's a huge jump. You see them sneak into 5 or 6 in the polls. But they have to win now. I just don't see how their resume is any more impressive than anybody else's. So our picks again for college football: Ohio State -21, Michigan -1 was on DraftKings. I got them at -1.5. And then Wake Forest, which is also at -1, I got them at -2 at home against NC State. So those are our picks this week, and that is our episode for this week. Let us know who your starts and fades were, or any questions or anything you guys have on our video. You can check us out on YouTube or on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere really. We're all over it. Just check out Fantasy Football Futures. But other than that, we will catch you on the next episode, which is going to be just our little pick'em show. So we'll catch you guys there. Deuces.
See ya.